The Galactic Council chamber had never felt so hollow. Tell and Eric watched as the holographic displays flickered, showing yet another star system fading into nothing. Not exploding, not dying, simply ceasing to exist, as if reality itself had forgotten its definition. A Brownies cluster, announced the automated voice. Population, 11.8 billion. Status, non-existent. The assembled delegates, representatives of over 300 advanced species, remained silent. What was there to say? In the last 6 cycles, they had watched helplessly as entire civilizations vanished. The unraveling, as they had come to call it, was accelerating. It wasn't merely destroying, it was unmaking. Teln adjusted his environmental suit, the thin membrane that allowed his Silurian physiology to function in the standardized atmosphere of the Council. As ambassador to the Unified Intergalactic Council, he had faced wars, disasters, and diplomatic crises. But never extinction on this scale. Never something that defied their most advanced scientific understanding. Does anyone have a new proposal? Teln asked, his voice carrying the musical inflections of his species. Anything we haven't considered? The chamber hummed with the soft whispers of translation devices. Hundreds of different linguistic patterns, physiologies, and thought structures, all attempting to solve the same existential puzzle. General Cyril Vox, a massive being with crystalline exoskeletal plates, rose from his position. The military representative of the Dravid Collective made no attempt to soften his tone. The arbiters have failed us, he stated flatly. 7 beings of supreme power, self-proclaimed guardians of cosmic balance, and they refuse intervention. One is already consumed by this phenomenon. The rest hide behind protocol and universal laws. The arbiters operate beyond our understanding, counter to fluttering, luminescent entity, the delegate from the Photomorphic Alliance. They maintain the balance between dimensions. Perhaps they are as terrified as we are, interrupted Cyril, his crystal plates clicking in agitation. Or perhaps they know something they aren't telling us. Teln watched as the familiar patterns of blame and fear played out. With each passing cycle, the unity they had maintained for millennia frayed further. Already, smaller conflicts had broken out in the outer systems, species fighting over safe haven planets, resources, escape routes to galaxies not yet touched by the unraveling. It was then that Elderson spoke. The ancient being, a collection of connected neural strands housed in a hovering preservation field, rarely contributed to general debates. As the oldest known living entity in the Council, predating even the formation of the Intergalactic Alliance, when Sin spoke, all listened. There is one option we have not considered. The Elder's voice was transmitted directly into the minds of all present, though it has been stricken from all official records. The chamber fell silent, a deeper, more attentive silence than before. We could contact the humans. The word hung in the air like a forbidden incantation. Several delegates visibly recoiled. Others began urgent conversations with their aides. Teln felt a chill run through his respiratory chambers. Humans, the species that had been systematically erased from all historical documents, scientific archives, and cosmic maps. The only species to ever receive a unanimous exclusion order from all known space. Elder Sin, Teln said carefully, you know that even suggesting such a thing violates Council Directive 0. I am well aware. The neural strands pulsed with ancient energy. But I was present when the directive was written. I remember why it exists. And I remember what they were capable of. General Cyril's crystalline form seemed to darken. My entire civilization knows what they were capable of. The Proxima event was not that long ago, Elder. 10 billion Dravid gone. Not killed, removed from existence. As if they had never evolved at all. That was precisely their point, Elder Sin countered. No bloodshed, no suffering, just adjustment of reality. Teln felt his mind struggling with the implications. The Forbidden Archives had hints, fragments of information about the species called human. They were said to have started as ordinary biological entities, limited by their physical forms, their short lifespans, and their single homeworld. But then they changed, not through natural evolution, but through self-directed transformation. Technology that became biology. Biology that transcended physics. Physics that they eventually learned to rewrite. The Arbiters themselves signed the Isolation Accord, Talon reminded everyone. The quarantine of Earth and all human outposts was deemed necessary for cosmic stability. And now, cosmic stability is collapsing anyway. Elderson replied simply. The debate raged for days. The unraveling continued its inexorable progress, swallowing 3 more minor systems. Finally, with the support of enough delegates to form a majority, Talon was granted access to the sealed archives, the most restricted information repository in known space. The knowledge he found there left him sleepless for cycles. Humans had not merely advanced. They had fundamentally changed what advancement meant. Their trajectory had been unlike any other species. Where others reached technological plateaus or shifted to spiritual development, humans had ruthlessly pursued capability itself. Not wisdom, not harmony, but the raw ability to affect reality according to their will. Their final documented form wasn't even a form at all. It was a state of existence where consciousness, technology, and the fundamental fabric of reality had become inseparable. They had become living equations in the universe's underlying mathematics. And the gods, the beings humans themselves had once worshipped as deities, had come to fear them. The Arbiters, those 7 entities of cosmic power, had actually negotiated with humans. Not demanded, not ordered, but bargained. The Isolation Accord wasn't a punishment. It was a compromise. Humans agreed to withdraw from the cosmic community, to remain within self-imposed boundaries, in exchange for autonomy within those boundaries. All records of their existence would be purged, save for the warning, never disturb them. When Talon brought this information back to the council, the division grew even starker. You want to awaken the one threat that even cosmic entities feared. General Cyril bellowed, his crystalline form resonating with fury. I watch my homeworld, my entire species, become nothing more than a footnote in some unwritten history, because humans decided our evolutionary path was an interesting but ultimately redundant experiment. They didn't hate us. They didn't even consider us enemies. We were simply inconvenient to their designs. And yet, countered Elder Sin, they responded to reason in the end. They accepted the accord. They withdrew rather than continue reshaping the universe against the will of other sentient beings. Out of boredom, perhaps, Cyril snapped. Or strategy. Talon found himself torn. As a diplomat, his entire existence was dedicated to finding paths of cooperation between vastly different species. But the humans transcended difference. They had become something else entirely, neither organic nor synthetic, neither material nor energy, but a self-perpetuating paradox of existence. We don't even know if they still exist, one delegate pointed out. It's been over 10,000 cycles since the Isolation Accord. They exist, Elderson said with certainty. You don't understand what they became. Time itself is just another variable in their equation now. The debate might have continued indefinitely, but the unraveling forced their hand. When the Brownies cluster disappeared, taking with it nearly 12 billion sentient beings, including several council member species, the decision was made. They would send a message. One message, encoded in the oldest known communication protocol, directed toward the region of space that had once contained the Sol system, though no modern sensors could detect anything there but empty void. The message was simple. We are running out. If you still exist, remember your promise. What promise? Telnet asked. Elderson had merely replied, they'll know. For 12 agonizing days, there was no response. The council remained in permanent emergency session. 3 more systems vanished. The Arbiters remained silent to all summoning attempts, save for one cryptic message. The balance is already lost. Then, exactly 12 minutes after the 12th day, a mathematical precision that could not be coincidental, A single response arrived on all communication channels simultaneously, in every language of every species present. "We are coming." The message itself was unremarkable. The method of delivery was impossible. The signal had arrived faster than light could travel from the Sol region to Council space. More disturbingly, it had arrived simultaneously on planets separated by vast interstellar distances, with no detectable transmission medium. Before the Council could even begin to analyze this impossibility, the sensors detected something far more alarming. Throughout Council space, fixed stars were oscillating, vibrating in patterns that defied astronomical understanding. Space itself seemed to bend and flex, as if being manipulated by unseen forces. And then, at the edge of the galactic disk, far from any inhabited system, but still well within the unraveling's projected path, something appeared. Not through conventional entrance into normal space, not through any recognized form of faster-than-light travel, but through what the science division could only describe as reality revision. It wasn't a ship. It was a structure, a massive, perfect tetrahedron that seemed to exist in more dimensions than the standard four. Its surface constantly shifted, displaying mathematical symbols and equations that hurt to look at directly. It bent light around itself in ways that made it simultaneously blinding to observe yet impossible to miss. The Council erupted into chaos. Several species immediately withdrew their delegates, preferring to face the unraveling rather than witness the return of humanity. General Cyril deployed the defensive fleet, a futile gesture, everyone knew, but one born of desperate pride. Teln, as the ambassador who had pushed for this contact, was chosen to lead the first communication team. Their shuttle approached the human structure, which now hung motionless in space, its surface still crawling with indecipherable equations. No docking procedure was necessary. As they approached, a section of the tetrahedron simply rearranged itself, creating a perfect entry point that matched the dimensions of their shuttle. Inside, they found a chamber that seemed specifically designed for their delegation. Atmosphere, gravity, and temperature all perfectly calibrated for the 5 different species represented. And waiting for them was a single figure. It appeared humanoid, bipedal, with recognizable head, torso, and limbs. But that was where the similarity to any biological entity ended. Its body seemed to be composed of interlocking geometric patterns that constantly shifted and reorganized themselves, yet somehow maintained a consistent overall form. It had no face, merely a smooth surface where mathematical symbols occasionally rippled across like water. "I am the representative," it said, its voice neither masculine nor feminine, neither mechanical nor organic. "I speak for humanity." Teln stepped forward. "I am Ambassador Teln Eric of the Sileran, representing the Unified Intergalactic Council." We know why you have called," the representative interrupted. "The unraveling threatens all structured reality in this region of existence. Can you help us?" Teln asked directly. The representative's form shifted slightly, mathematical patterns flowing more rapidly across its surface. "Yes. Will you help us?" Teln pressed. "We have already begun." As if to emphasize this statement, the chamber around them briefly flickered, showing them a view of space outside. The tetrahedron was now emitting waves of something that defied visual description. Not energy, not matter, but what looked like ripples in the fundamental fabric of reality itself. "What are you doing?" asked Dr. Lamina, the scientific specialist on the delegation. "Resetting local physics to baseline parameters," the representative explained, as casually as one might discuss adjusting room temperature. "The unraveling is not a conscious entity with malicious intent. It is the unintended consequence of a higher dimensional being accidentally intersecting with your reality, like a foot stepping on an anthill without awareness. You're pushing it away." Teln tried to understand. "We are adjusting the phase frequency of this section of reality so that it no longer intersects with a higher dimensional incursion. The unraveling is not being destroyed. It is being redirected to pass harmlessly through your dimension without interaction." The delegation exchanged glances of confusion and hope. Dr. Lamina's analysis equipment was going haywire, recording measurements that contradicted each other and violated established physical laws. How was this possible? She demanded. You're altering the fundamental constants of physics. Not altering, the representative corrected. Restoring. The incursion had already begun destabilizing them. We are merely reinforcing the original parameters. General Cyril, who had insisted on joining the delegation despite Teln's objections, stepped forward aggressively. If you possess such power, why did you withdraw? Why leave the rest of us vulnerable to threats like this? The representative turned toward him, the mathematical patterns on its surface slowing. Your species was among those that requested our isolation, General. Your ancestors feared what we had become. With good reason, Cyril growled. Yes, the representative agreed simply. With good reason. Over the next 3 days, the council watched in awe as the unraveling, the existential threat that had consumed entire civilizations, simply stopped. The tetrahedron continued emitting its reality-altering waves, creating what scientists could only describe as a reinforced domain of stable physics that expanded outward, encompassing more and more of the affected space. When it reached regions where the unraveling had already passed, however, nothing reversed. The destroyed systems remained gone. The billions of lives lost stayed lost. Can't you restore what was destroyed? Teln asked the representative during one of their now regular communications. No, it replied. We can redefine the current and future state of physical laws, but we cannot reconstruct specific configurations of matter and energy that have already been dispersed beyond recognition. Creation is not recreation. The council was deeply divided about humanity's intervention. Many were profoundly grateful, organizing ceremonies of thanks and offering resources, knowledge, alliances, anything the humans might want. Others were terrified by the casual display of reality manipulation, seeing it as confirmation that the isolation accord had been not just justified, but perhaps not strict enough. What do they want in return? Became the question on everyone's mind. When Teln finally posed it directly to the representative, the answer was unexpected. Nothing that you can provide. Surely there must be something, Teln pressed. The representative's form shifted, its patterns briefly forming what almost looked like a human face before dissolving back into mathematical symbols. Ambassador, you must understand. We evolved beyond material or energy requirements eons ago. Knowledge, power, longevity, these are not currencies we trade in anymore. We have access to dimensions where such concepts are as primitive as stone tools would be to you. Then why help us at all? Teln asked, voicing the question that had been bothering him since the beginning. The representative was silent for a long moment before responding. Because we remember. Remember what? What it was like to be afraid? What it was like to be finite? What it was like to face extinction alone? The representative's form shifted again. The promise we made when we signed the isolation accord wasn't just to withdraw. It was a promise that, should something arise that threatened sentient life beyond conventional understanding, we would intervene. But the arbiters, the cosmic entities you call gods, they did nothing, Teln pointed out. The arbiters are bound by the laws they were created to uphold, the representative explained. They maintain balance, not survival. When the unraveling began, it represented a fundamental shift in cosmic equilibrium, one they were designed to accept, not prevent. And humans, we were never designed. We designed ourselves. We respect cosmic balance, but we were not created to serve it. As their mission concluded and the unraveling threat faded, the representative presented Teln with a small device, a perfect cube that seemed to shift and change whenever not observed directly. What is this? Teln asked. A question, the representative replied. Not the answer, but the question itself. Do not use it to find an answer, but to know when to ask again. I don't understand. You will. When the time comes, the human structure, the impossible tetrahedron, departed as mysteriously as it had arrived, leaving the council intact, but profoundly changed. Debates raged about the implications of humanity's return, however brief. Some argued for establishing permanent communication channels. Others demanded reinforcement of the isolation accord, fearing that any regular contact might inspire humans to take a more active role in cosmic affairs. Telon found himself transformed by the experience. Once a diplomat who believed in the perfect balance of cosmic forces, he now understood that survival sometimes required forces that existed outside that balance. That sometimes the difference between extinction and continuation wasn't found in harmony, but in controlled disruption. He kept the cube, the question, secure in his private quarters, telling no one of its existence. Not the council, not his own government, not even his closest allies. He studied it in solitude, watching how it seemed to anticipate his thoughts, shifting its configuration moments before he focused his attention on it. The council eventually settled into an uneasy compromise. The isolation accord would remain in place, but a special provision was added, a specific subspace frequency that would remain perpetually open for emergency communication should another existential threat emerge. The arbiters, those cosmic entities that most species revered as gods, eventually returned to council space. They made no mention of their absence during the crisis, nor of humanity's intervention. But they did announce a recalibration of cosmic parameters to prevent similar incursions in the future, a task that would have been beyond them before, but seemed suspiciously achievable now. Years later, as Telon approached the end of his natural lifespan, he received an unexpected visitor. Elder Sin, now rarely seen in public council proceedings, appeared in his private chambers without announcement. "You still have it," the elder stated, neural strands pulsing gently as they sensed the cube hidden behind a quantum lock panel. "How did you know?" Telon asked. "Because I received one as well long ago during the first contact, before the accord." Telon removed the cube from its hiding place, watching as it shifted and danced in his hands. The representative called it a question, but I've never been able to determine what question it represents or how to use it. Elder Sin's neural strands pulsed with what might have been amusement. "That's because you're trying to understand it as a tool, rather than as a perspective." "What do you mean?" "Humans didn't become powerful because they discovered new energy sources or weapons or technologies. They became powerful because they learned to ask different questions about reality itself." The elder moved closer. "That cube doesn't contain a question. It is the embodiment of questioning. It represents the capacity to look at established truth and ask, what if this could be different?" Telon looked down at the cube, which had settled into a stable configuration for the first time since he'd received it. "So it's philosophical. It's more than that. It's evolutionary. The humans didn't give you a weapon or a shield. They gave you the seed of their own transformation, the capacity to question the immutable, to redefine the absolute." "Why me?" Telon asked. "Because you were willing to call them, even knowing what they were. Because you understood that sometimes salvation doesn't come from angels, but from that which is powerful enough to terrify gods." Telon never fully decoded the cube's purpose during his lifetime, but he ensured it would be passed to his successor, and then to the next, with only a simple instruction. This is not the answer. It is the question. Use it not to find solutions, but to know when the established solutions are insufficient. Centuries later, when a new crisis emerged, a temporal paradox that threatened to lock the entire galaxy in an eternal loop, the cube began to glow with an internal light for the first time. The current keeper understood. It was time to ask the question again. Time to call those who existed beyond the boundaries of conventional possibility. Time to remember that in a universe of wonders and horrors, the most profound truth remained. When faced with extinction, it wasn't faith or fate or cosmic balance that would save you. It was the willingness to call upon that which even the gods feared. Not because it was evil, but because it was change itself, embodied and evolved. Because sometimes, to survive the impossible, you needed those who had made impossibility their home. The message was sent once more. We are running out. If you still exist, remember your promise. And once more, after exactly 12 minutes on the 12th day, the answer came. We are coming.